The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for anyone who's joined us on the West Coast. We appreciate your attendance to our Barry-Wehmiller International Resources monthly webcast. And I want to get started here quickly because we've got quite a bit of content to go through here. So today's webcast series is going to be around performance tuning from a global collaboration perspective. I'm sorry, my slide advanced too quickly there. So improving global product development with Windchill tuning and monitoring. So that's the topic that we're going to address today. So just some quick housekeeping items here. If you want to use a voice over IP, select to test your audio, and that'll validate that the voice over IP is working. Otherwise, you can dial in. If you have any questions, please submit them in the dialog box below, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the demonstration, and we'll answer all of the questions at that time. So, but feel free to submit those questions during the demonstration. So my name is Michael Mills. I'm the moderator today. I'm one of the national account managers around PLM services, specifically Windchill. And we also have Banesh Kumar, who is going to be the speaker today, and he is a senior consultant around PLM services and assists us around pre-sales as well as implementation and post-support. So quick agenda here. I'm going to go through a very quick BWIR introduction for anybody on the call who doesn't know who we are or would like a little bit more information. And then we're going to jump right into the presentation and demo around the themes of Windchill performance and then the Windchill monitoring tools and the demonstration. And as I mentioned, we'll wrap that up. I think we have a couple poll questions, maybe 2 or 3, that we want to send out to the group, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. So BWIR, as you can see here, not to read the slide here, but we're a global leader in providing business and technology products and solutions around the manufacturing domain through the power of inspired people. So Barry-Wehmiller is part of a parent company, or BWIR is part of the parent company Barry-Wehmiller, which is a U.S.-based manufacturing company with operations worldwide, going on close to 130 years of business. We're closing in on $2 billion in annual revenue with close to 7,000 employees. So the BWIR business unit helps manufacturers solve business, engineering, and IT challenges that impact growth and cost and risk through these different solutions. So within BWIR, we've got 3 core capabilities, and I'll start right to left. So we have Enterprise Solutions Group, which provides ERP and CRM solutions. We are one of Infor largest ERP partners in the country. We're also a Microsoft partner around both CRM and ERP. And they also provide some other services around business intelligence and enterprise application management. Our Engineering Solutions Group provide support around NPI, product development, machine design, outsourcing of special projects around CAD development and that kind of thing. The Product Development Solutions Group is a group that I'm involved in with Ganesh, and we manage the product lifecycle management and the Windchill projects, which includes PLM consulting, as well as other enterprise solutions that fall under the PLM umbrella of Windchill. And then we work closely with the PTC License and Sales Group, which manages all the licensing, the training delivery, and the maintenance. So amongst these three groups, we have over 300 engineers at our disposal, and we currently cross-sell. We obviously have resources available when we have specific engagement, so which is really nice. We have a wide breadth of expertise amongst these three groups. And then just quickly, just to dig in a little bit, a little bit more specifics around our group, the Product Development Solutions Group. Like I mentioned, we have the PTC Product Suite and Training Group, which handles all the license sales and the training and the maintenance. And then our group is the PLM Consulting and Services Group, which provides assessments, upgrades, migrations, workflow customizations. We also have a on-site as well as a offshore model to keep our delivery costs down. We have close to 25 dedicated Windchill PLM engineers with specialties around migration, upgrades, customizations. We have process engineers. We have project managers. So it's nice that we have people who have are specialized in specific areas depending on what the engagement is. So we can cover just about any type of challenge that comes across and help customers with these problems and meet their business objectives. And then lastly, this is just a slide that shows our global outreach. I mean, we work with some of the largest manufacturers. We also work with some small mid-sized manufacturers, and our goal is to provide a total solution around their engineering and enterprise needs. So, these companies we're not only involved with on the PLM side, but also on the engineering services side. So we hope to work with you as a total solutions provider. I just wanted to show you kind of the breadth of who BWIR was and the support that we have from our parent company, which is Barry-Wehmiller, which, like I had mentioned, is close to a $2 billion company. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Ganesh. I apologize for the lag if you guys are seeing it, but I've got some on my side. He's going to jump in here with improving global product development with Windchill tuning and monitoring. So, Ganesh, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us in today's webinar. We are going to discuss about a few performance tuning steps which you can perform in your Windchill server and quite a few monitoring systems. So let's start with what is performance. Performance is one word which is used to describe multiple scenarios, especially when you are talking about application performance. If someone asks me what is how do you define a high performance application, I might describe or I might define a high performance application as the one which has low web latency. That means you will have your page loaded in less response times. A high-performance application could be an application which can serve ever-increasing number of users. That means you will have the scalability and an application that grows, that doesn't go down. So you need to have a reliable application which can continuously support your user base and increase their productivity. Needless to say, whenever there is a performance issue, it's quite annoying for admins as well as end users. So as far as admins are concerned, performance issues will affect them in a different way. You don't want users to bug you all the time with performance complaints when you are not able to deliver the performance which you have committed to your business. So as far as end users are concerned, the performance will impact their productivity. They will lack the confidence in the system, and it could directly impact your company's growth goals. So being said that, let's go ahead and see what makes up performance. Performance of any application is measured by one user, but it is determined by the various parameters or the load in the current system. So it could be dependent on the active users. It could be based on the current system configuration, the kind of end user tasks which they are performing, and the kind of data they are dealing with, right? So let's see what really matters. What are the probable costs of Windchill performance? So as you are already aware, a basic Windchill architecture consists of a Java-based Windchill server, that is the application layer, and you also have a web server which enables web connectivity, thereby giving your Windchill a web-centric behavior. And in the backend, you have your database layer. The database layer is a data repository where Windchill stores all your metadata information like users data, like not specific user data, like metadata related to the files which you upload or the objects which you store. All those information will be stored in your database, which forms the persistent tail for your Windchill system. So a basic performance issue could be span across any of these areas which we have listed here. It could be a very basic DNS routing issue or a mapping issue, or it could be a misconfiguration in your JVM or in a method server parameter. So some of the common causes of performance issues are database related stuff, where the database is not able to deliver the performance which Windchill expects. Thereby, the user will not get the right amount of response time which he expects out of it. So let's start with some of the steps which you can perform for your Oracle tuning. Before I start with Oracle, let's discuss about the sizing of the hardware. Just like any other application, your hardware should be sized enough to handle your user's load. For this, we normally follow CC's guideline around hardware sizing, which they have published in their website as Hardware Sizing Guide, which gives you a direct mapping between your number of active users and the type of resources which you should plan on your system. There are certain thumb rules which you should follow when you create or when you plan to design, when you design your hardware. For example, when you select the CPUs, you should select CPUs with at least 16 MB LCD cache. That will give you better performance. And in this age of virtualization, you can have virtual cores created, but do not treat hyper-threading as one core. If you are hyper-threading in a single core, do not treat as separate cores based on your recommendation from the Hardware Sizing Guide. And when you select your hard drive or your storage, basically you should obtain the hard disk which gives you the best performance and which you can afford. The performance of any disk or any hard drive component is primarily dependent on the RPM. So you should purchase or procure a hardware which has got enough RPM and cache size. And also, if you are using RAID cards, you should make sure that the RAID cards are good enough to handle the load which the system demands. Next, to start with Oracle, Oracle can be configured in automatic memory management mode. If you have a very comparatively small deployment, when I say comparatively small deployment, it could be small to medium. The memory management functionality in Oracle could be leveraged to get the best performance out of that. On the other hand, if you have a large deployment and if you have a DBA in-house, I still prefer to have the shared global areas or the memory to be configured based on their recommendation. For a medium small, for small implementation of Windchill, it's good to have 10 to 15 gigs of SGA, and for medium 15 to 20, and for large you need to have like up to 120 gigs. Another important factor which affects the performance of your database is indexing. Effective indexing should be created, which leads to improved performance. For those who doesn't know how to what is index, indexing without index, if you don't have index created inside your system, the engine of your RBDMS, the core engine of Oracle or SQL Server, is like a reader who is trying to find a word in a book by examining each page. Of course, that would take more time. On the other hand, if you have an index at the back of your book, and if the reader is referring to that index, he can go to that page where he has that word quite easily. So in database terms, a table can appear when there is no index on the table. When there is no index on the table, your query has to go through each and every row to find the results which your application demands for. As far as Windchill application is concerned, PTC has released a list of 50 plus indexes that is available in PTC website under the case solution 98135. So you can download those indexes and index your Oracle or SQL Server and run a gather schema so that your queries will always follow the least cost path, right? And if there is a problem, in your Oracle installation or your Oracle instance, how can you identify that? The most important method or the easiest way to identify problem is to look into the Oracle Management Console, which comes with Enterprise Edition. That gives you pretty much comprehensive information regarding your Oracle performance. On the other hand, you have a couple of views which is available in Oracle, which you could query and find the performance related information. Those are $db cache advice if you are db cache advice enabled. That gives you the percentage or estimated time for reads. Based on the cache advice, you can tune your Windchill to your Oracle server and get the best performance out of it. The second one is $SQL, that will allow the SQL execution history, like how many times one particular SQL query has been executed in your server and how much time it took. So based on that, you can make a decision to optimize that particular query. Let's move on to SQL Server. As far as SQL Server is concerned, the memory allocation between SQL Server and Microsoft has got a much more tighter coupling. The SQL Server engine is configured in such a way to acquire as much of memory it needs from the server without causing a memory shortage. So if you have the right amount of memory available in your system based on PTC's recommendation, I prefer to have like 3 gigs, at least 3 gigs more than what you have recommended for your operating system and other components, then you are good to go with SQL Server. Similarly, indexes. Indexes for SQL Server can be found from the same case solution, that is 98135. You should download all those indexes and create those indexes so that your queries will perform in a faster way. Next important area which you should consider during your implementation using SQL Server is that you should always create your TempDB in a separate database, a separate disk drive, because TempDB, the performance or the write speed to TempDB has significant impact on your SQL Server's performance. So you should make sure that your TempDB is not located in your OS drive. For example, in Windows, it should not be on C drive. It should not be on the same drive where you have the database files. For example, in PTC's case, it should not be on the directory where you have PTC SQL Server where you have the data files. And it should, at the minimum level, it should be located on a dedicated logical drive, right? Same is the case with transaction log. Transaction log doesn't have to be there in a drive which has faster performance. You don't need to have a faster performance for transaction log, especially when you have your database set to a full recovery mode. It will generate a lot of logs, and that will result in a lot of I/O operations. So it's recommended to have this transaction log in a separate logical drive. Problem identification, as far as Oracle SQL Server, if you are a user of SQL Server, what I normally do with our customers, or whenever they recommend or whenever they reach to us with a performance issue, what we will do is we will use SQL Server Profiler. It's a standalone tool which you can use to capture the SQL Server events from the server, and you can save them to a trace file, and you can create workloads out of it. So that trace file you can feed it to Database Tuning Advisor. That is a tool which comes with SQL Server Management Studio, and you can use this tool to generate recommendations out of your SQL Server. So once you run this particular utility, it will give you a file with recommendations. Another one which we use generally use is Best Practices Analyzer. There are other third-party tools available in market as well, which you could use for analyzing the performance of SQL Server. But the out-of-the-box free tools provide the best, and we have done a lot of implementations or performance improvements using these out-of-the-box tools. Now that we have considered, or now that we have covered all the database performance or most of the database performance considerations, let's go to the server parameters which contributes to performance. First of all, there is a utility named Windchill Configuration Assistant from PTC. What it does is, once you run that utility, it examines the resource information from the server where you have Windchill installed, and it calculates the recommended values for Windchill properties. So all the tasks which you normally do with your performance tuning guide till 9.1 is available as recommendations or as settings in which you can set using Windchill Configuration Assistant. So it's always recommended right after the implementation, or whenever you have a change in your hardware resources in your system. In this time, it's very dynamic because you will have virtualization. You might plan to increase the number of methods, or number of cores, or number of amount of RAM in your system. In that case, you should run Windchill Configuration Assistant so that all your Windchill properties will be up to date as per the hardware resources. Furnished below after that are a set of db.property and wt.property query limits. As you might have already noticed, when you do a search from Windchill, suppose if I am searching A star, which is a wildcard search, Windchill will go to database and fetch all the files which starts with A. So if you have more than a million files in your database which starts with A, it's going to pull all that information. Think about a scenario when your memory is small, and if you cannot hold 1 million objects in your memory, then it's going to cause severe performance issues. It can cause method server crashing, and it will cause the instability of the system. So it's always recommended to keep these properties in your property files. What we call it as is runaway transaction, this kind of transactions which will occupy more object in your memory. These properties will set limits for your amount of data which comes from your database, and it prevents runaway transactions. As you already noticed, if you are a Windchill user, you might have already noticed the common operations in Windchill, like add to workspace, check out, check in, revise, save as operation. Everything comes with a default collector. What that collector will do is it will collect the dependencies of the file which you have selected initially. So there are a set of, when there are more dependencies, or when you keep all the dependencies on, it will fetch more information from the server which you might not actually need, and thereby decreasing the performance of the server. So you can go to preferences, the preference manager in Windchill, and you can turn the preferences for collection to minimal dependencies. That could be either none or required. Another step which you should perform normally in your common space or workspace is edit your default table displays to use a minimum number of columns. So when there are more columns in your views, it's going to pull more information from the server, thereby decreasing the performance. So for example, in Windchill 10.x release, you have so many status columns like compare status, out of date with workspace configuration, etc. You don't need necessarily disable all of them, but whatever columns which you feel that it's not required for you, go ahead and remove that from your table views. This will help in reducing the server load, and it will enhance your performance as well. From organization level, you can create views and push it to your users. And another configuration or another best practice which you can do for Apache is, when you are dealing with large assemblies, you might often get timeout messages or timeout errors, which might be because of the keep alive. So what does this keep alive do? When you have when you have increased value of keep alive timeout, Apache will keep or wait for a subsequent request before closing the connection. So it will wait for, suppose if the value is 60 seconds, it will wait for 60 seconds before it could close that connection. So sometimes your network might need more time to deliver the package or packets to you. So in that case, increasing the keep alive timeout will help you in getting rid of all the network, not all of them, some of the network related problems. Of course, if you are increasing the keep alive timeout, that's gonna impact your Apache's performance. To compensate that, you should increase the value of threads per child, which is which will increase the number of threads for Apache's child processes and the thread limit. And the most important thing which I would like to recommend is to update to the latest release of software. As you are really aware, as you are already experienced, PTC has always been interested or invested in improving their software. So that Windchill software has got evolved over the time, and it added a lot of improvements both in terms of performance as well as in enhancement. To leverage or to enjoy all these benefits, it's always recommended to keep your system updated to the latest release, and always subscribe to the tech support messages. There are tech support subscriptions which you can do from Windchill server, which you can do from PTC website. So you can go there and subscribe for PTC tech support subscriptions, which will keep you updated regarding the patches. For example, there is a patch if you are in 10.1 MO40, or if you are planning to update to 10.1 MO40, you should consider applying a functional patch which will resolve your Workgroup Manager connection issues with Windchill server. Now that we have covered the server performance tips, let's see what we can do from a client's perspective. On a client side, the performance of your embedded browser is dependent on what sort of browser you are using. There are three settings which an out-of-the-box Windchill allows. The first one is single memory process, which you could control using your config.pro option. The first process, it is the default configuration. What it does is your Internet Explorer, embedded Internet Explorer, and Creo parametric will use the same memory. That is the default configuration that will give you the least performance. The second one is separate process. That is the second configuration, where your Internet Explorer and Creo will be two separate processes. This will give you improved memory management. The third one is using the Mozilla browser. So you can have Mozilla as your embedded browser. That is, by far in my experience, that is the fastest browser, which gives you more performance in your embedded browser, and it has got a good memory management capability as well. So if you are corporate, or if your IT allows you to have to use Mozilla browser, then this is the best choice. PTC has released a list of recommended browsers for each release based on your operating system and your browser. You can find it from their website. And there are a list of Internet Explorer related registry settings. So by default, there are some restrictions in Windows as far as Mac connections are considered, or automatic caching is considered. There are a list of Internet Explorer related registry settings. So these settings are consolidated in a file and is published in PTC website. So if you are using Internet Explorer, it's recommended to download that registry file and update your registry. It's just a click of a button. And it could be downloaded from the case solution 23960. So you could download the registry settings and it will give you optimal performance as far as Internet Explorer is concerned. So once you have all the configuration in place, you could download Windchill Client Inspector. That is a utility available to download from PTC website. You could use this utility to verify your configuration and you get the recommendation. So once you have everything configured, you need to run this utility and get the output from it and make the same changes in all your client systems. So that will help you in having an optimized client. So this is a list of recommendations for each of the browsers and based on the operating system. So this is a technical comparison between different browsers. When I say browser, this is done outside, that is from a standalone browser. So the browser performance will have significant amount of contribution to the overall performance because Windchill 10 comes with a rich and dynamic interactive desktop application type of experience, which is achieved using various Ajax, JavaScript supported, server architecture. So to have a better performance, you need to have a good browser. By far, as per PTC's recommendation, Google Chrome has got the best performance, and Firefox is next to that. So what are the probable causes of problems in your server? Do not allocate more memory to any of your Windchill processors than what you have available in your system. So you should not, if your system has got only 16 GB of memory, then all your server components should have been distributed or should have values less than that 16 gigs. So if you sum up all those individual memory allocation, it should be less than the total memory. And always keep in mind, you should keep 20% of your memory for your operating system. And do not change any JVM settings unless explicitly said by an expert, by a trusted partner or by your PTC contact. Because JVM settings has been tuned by PTC to get optimal performance, and if you make any changes from any Google result or something, then that could cause performance issues. Then you should set up query limits as per what we have discussed earlier. We should have query limits set, which will reduce the runaway transactions. Some of the other properties which you could consider setting is load balance. This property, what it does is, it determines the number of operations which a single method server could perform before it's balanced to a second method server. So you should always have this value set in between 5 to 15. And the second property is load balance redirect. That is the number of times one request will be redirected from one method server to other method server. The recommended value for this property is 1 less than the number of method servers. Other two important properties are WT principal cache and remote object ID cache. These caches are set by Windchill Configuration Assistant, so you don't need necessarily to go and set this property. But this property is a place where Windchill keeps all this cache, which controls this property, which controls the cache where it stores the principal related information cache. So if you have more users, then you need to have more a big cache to store values. And DB connection is another property. Typically, the range of DB connection varies between 10 to 25, but again, if you have less number of DB connection, then your Windchill processors have to wait for additional DB connection to perform the request. If it's minimum, if it's more, it's going to consume more memory, both from Windchill side as well as from Oracle side. So you need to have a trade-off between memory and max DB connection. So if you have a remote user connected through WAN to WAN, then you should consider setting up replication servers. Replication servers are tiny, small instance of Windchill server, which you could deploy in a local facilities, and which would act as a temporary file storage for enhancing the speed. So you can get rid of the effects of WAN accelerator by get rid of the effects of WAN latencies and bandwidth issues by 89% if you have WAN accelerator and file server. Suppose if you don't want to invest on high cost WAN accelerators, you can still go with file server, which will increase the performance or which will reduce the effect of your latency by 84%. Now that we had a quick overlook or quick outlook on the utilities available or the performance tuning parameters, let's go ahead and see the tools available. With Windchill 10 release, you have multiple tools available to monitor your performance. As you are already aware, you cannot maintain or manage a system which you cannot measure. So you should measure the performance occasionally or during regular intervals and record that so that you will be able to keep a track of your performance degradations, and you can apply the measures. So out of the box, there are, the server status page will redirect you to many monitoring tools through which you can see the way your system behaves. Another important or cool tool from PTC is PTC System Monitor. This is a tool available from PTC which is built on top of Dynatrace application monitoring mechanism. So this could be used to monitor your Windchill performance, your Windchill incidents, etc. So the key use case scenarios for this particular utility or PSM is to detect your issues, to diagnose your issues, to repair, to plan and report your issues. So let's go ahead and see how a PSM looks. So PSM consists of, as you can see from the slide before going there, as you can see from your slide, you can see PSM has got three important parameters or three important components. The first one is server, where you will perform all the response time analysis, real-time analysis, and RCA right here. And you have collector, which collects information from agents. Agents are small, shared libraries which are deployed in Windchill Server, which will run inside the JVM of your Windchill. So it runs in the same JVM where you have your Windchill processes running. So this agent will collect the information and it will send to collector. The server will analyze those results, and you could view these results through a client, through a light client which is built in Java Quick-Start application. You can even monitor your file servers using this particular utility. So I have my PTC System Monitor open here. So in the first window, what you see is a monitoring tab. So this is a monitoring tab. I'm sorry about that. So this is a default one. You cannot modify anything here. So what you see here are different views. You can select your application view, where it will show the status of the applications which are currently monitored by PSM. So I can see, one of my application is in OK status. That means that my application is performing well. And I can see another application which is currently disconnected. So this is a rough overview of applications available to monitor. You can get more details by clicking on this application details tab. So here you would be able to see response time, failure rate, throughput. So Dynatrace automatically calculates baselines for your median response time and the slowest response time, and it calculates the baseline for failure rate and response time. So it basically, these parameters are based on your historic data, and also you can set up SLAs, right? Another option which you have available here is to monitor your infrastructure. So once you switch over to your infrastructure view, you will be able to see the status of the host which is currently running Windchill Server. So you can see my server is this one, and I can see the status of CPU, disk, and all those statuses. So if you want to dig details, you can go to the detail view. You can see an overview of the host information. It's currently set to show the information for the last 24 hours. So I can see last night I performed, I had some memory issue, so it got notified here. And you can see the alerts like memory health of the host is not okay. So you can dig more information by hovering your mouse over different dashboards available here. So if you see here, this is the place where I had memory problems. If I hover my mouse over on top of this, I could see the used and free memory. This is one of the features. You can compare side to side between your overall host performance on the left-hand side and between the processor. When I say processor, it could be background method server, or server manager. So you could visually compare the results which is observed from your host as well as from your application perspective. Out of the box, Dynatrace Monitoring Client or Windchill PDC System Monitor comes with a lot of dashboards. I will show you a couple of them. So you can see the dashboards by going through dashboard and open new dashboard. So you can see the naming convention. Some of them start with D and some of them start with M. D, the one which starts with D and a number, those are for diagnostic purpose. I will quickly show you a couple of dashboards which I normally use. The one is common end user operation. If I select common end user operation dashboard, I will be able to see the actions which are performed by my end user and the average response time which they got for the last 72 hours. So I have taken the time frame as last 72 hours, and if I sort it down, I will be able to see the common operations. When I say common operations, it involves check-in, check-out, create, move, copy. So whatever you see in red are the ones which gave me a response time of more than 5 seconds, because I recently uploaded WorldCard, WorldCard assembly. So that's the reason the check-in and check-out times were a little higher than what we normally observe. And the gray ones are the ones which are not performed for the last 72 hours. So the copy action, delete action, edit action are the ones which are not performed in the server for the past 72 hours. So this is really helpful. You can see your business transactions, average response times, etc. from in a graphical way. You can break down to a particular time frame and see the performance. And another dashboard which is quite useful for me in monitoring the issues with our customers is the publishing queue status. This is quite useful because it would show you the number of entries in a graphical way in different publishing queues. It will show me the total number of entries. It will show me the maximum execution time for each of them. I can have incidents created for each of these tasks and get alerted for all these. If it grows or shoots above a desired value. So these are the several dashboards which are available with out-of-the-box PSM installation. I will quickly show you the incidents tab, which is on this side. If I go to incidents, I can see the incidents which happened in the server. So this could be used as your incident management, or it could be tied up with your ITIL process to observe or rectify the errors which you happen in your method server. Whatever in your Windchill server. So whatever you see as highlighted are the ones which occurred in last 72 hours. So for example, I can see my application was unavailable for this duration. So I can see that application process unavailable time. I manually shut it down. So that's the reason this is showing this value. So the duration for which the machine was down. And you could see background method server status. You can create your own incidents. You can either edit your existing instance and say that, okay, I should be notified if my background method server is not available for more than 2 seconds. Sometimes it could be unresponsive. It might not be responding to the request. So we can increase the time frame a little bit and say, like, let's wait for 2 seconds before it could send a notification. And you can say the actions, what action it should do. You can add actions from here. You can say what it should do in case if it goes above a particular threshold. So these are some of the cool features which you could use to monitor your incidents which happens in your Windchill server. I will explain another use case scenario. Suppose if you are a Windchill administrator and if your user complained about the application performance or its check-in time yesterday. So how will you dig information from here? It's quite easy. If not PSM, you would have to go through the entire logs or database history to find out what was the performance issue. You have to go through Apache access logs to find the response time he got. With PSM configured, it's pretty easy to configure or to find out the the reason for operation failures or high response time. So let me quickly go ahead and see my user complained about check-in issues yesterday between 2 and 4 p.m. So let me go ahead. I have business transaction operations here. So I can see different operations here. I will go here and select the check-in process, and I will edit the filter. I will edit the filter and set a custom filter. And say I should see all the performance related issues between 2 p.m. and say 4 p.m. Also, I have an option to select users. You can say new and you can say which user. So I can drill down to login, and you can select the users, which user you would like to select. And once you have the filter applied, it's going to show me all the operations which happened, check-in operation which happened between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So I can see one operation which took and which has an average response time of 3 seconds. So I can dig into more detailed information of this by going to drill down. It might appear a little difficult for you through this webinar because you are not, you might not be familiar with, the PTC system monitor user interfaces, but it's pretty easy. With a half-day training or half-day workshop, you will be able to understand most of it if you have basic understanding of Windchill architecture. I will just drill down to the pure path for this. So I can see these are the 3 transactions which happened and where the time was spent. Out of these 23 seconds, 89% was spent on IO, that is IO operation. That could be, Windchill's interaction with database. It could be a database read or a hard disk read. Let's click on that and get more information on that particular transaction. So you can see class by class or pure path by pure path tree, which shows where exactly the time was spent. And the amazing thing which you would like, which you see right now.
I just sent you Walt sent his cell phone number and the class that he's teaching and what room it's in. I just emailed it to you. All right.
So what I would like to show you is the transaction flow. For this particular transaction, which took 23 seconds, you can see 79%, most closely up to 80% of the time was spent on method server, and 20% of the time was spent on Oracle. So you can drill down and see where exactly the time was spent for one particular usage transaction. I hardly did a couple of mouse clicks to reach out to that position and find out the transaction. So this could be used to find out why the time, where you need tuning. In my case, I have 80% of the time spent on method server. That means my method server or my Windchill server needs tuning. To drill down to database details or the transaction details of database, you can go to drill down to database and see what are the SQL queries which ran in the background. So these are the SQL queries. In an ideal scenario or in a typical scenario, you will find out the the response time of queries. For example, for select query, I will go to details and find the SQL query. And I will, what I will do as a practice is I will go and see in Windchill's, in PTC website whether where I have got any hits for any of these SQLs, whether there are recommended indexes. If not, I will see to tune myself or I will reach out to our DBA. But what I would recommend is we should, if you find out the response time to be more on database side, and if you drill down to a particular transaction, what you can do is you can copy that that particular transaction and give it to a DBA and ask him to fine-tune, ask him to optimize the server to perform this in a faster way. So you can drill down and you can find out the root cause in less than 2 minutes, in less than a few, with quite a few, mouse clicks. So this is an amazing cool feature. You have a lot of business transactions for almost all the operations which you do in Windchill, and this will not add any overhead to your overall Windchill performance. So this is a pure lightweight, pure path agent. It will not add any overhead to your overall server performance. Another thing which you can see is you can see the transaction flow. If I close this dashboard, I will be able to show you a higher overall picture. Where you can see the entry points, how the queues are getting processed, where the time is spent, the overall health status of your Windchill's interaction with database, as well as with LDAP and other components. So this is pretty amazing, and it will tell you where exactly you need to improve. That is quite useful in your performance improvement process. So by far, I believe you got a rough idea of how the PSM looks and what you can do from a monitoring or incident management perspective. Let's see what you need to host PSM. PSM, of course, it needs a separate server. It could be in this time of virtualization or in this age of virtualization, spinning off an additional VM of 2 core or 8 gigs of memory. It will not add any additional burden. So you can have a machine with minimum configuration to run this. And these are some of the frequently asked questions which we have collected from our experience. Where can I get down PTC System Monitor? You can download PTC System Monitor from PTC Software Download Catalog, and it supports almost all the PTC applications. For example, Windchill 9.1, Windchill 10, and it also supports Flex PLM and PTC Integrity as well. Next is most important question, $1 million question. Is there any cost for implementing, getting PSM from PTC? It's absolutely free for all maintenance paying customers. You don't have to pay any additional license fees to PTC to use this functionality. And what sort of efforts are required to implement PSM? It needs a small level of installation and configuration efforts on your Windchill server. And to start using this, your administrators need to go for half to 1 day of PSM training or workshop. And BWIR, we have extensive experience in implementing PSMs and performance tuning steps or measures. We are quite successful in that so far, and you could approach us for implementing PSM or to diagnose any of your performance issues. That concludes today's session. If you have any questions, you can either, as Mike mentioned during the earlier part of this webinar, you can either type it in your question and answer box, or you can email it to me or Mike. Our email IDs will be on the screen shortly. All right. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks, Banesh. That was great. Just a couple more slides here. So just as a reminder, we do archive all the webcasts at bwir.com. So if you'd like to review what you've seen or share with others, plus we have all the other webcasts that we provided over the months past. And you also have an opportunity to register for our upcoming webcasts. And then we just released, we're really excited about this, some new out-of-the-box PLM packages that you can also find at bwir.com. It's right on the front screen towards the middle of the page. And we have some offerings such as out-of-the-box PDM link implementations, the PDM system check, which is focused on performance specific to this demonstration and this webcast. And then we've got a package around the global product development offerings from PTC, which were offered as of last year. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. And as Banesh mentioned, you can reach out to myself, Banesh, both of us. I speak with him frequently. We work daily with any questions around this specific webcast. We'd love to set up a one-on-one meeting or call with you if you want some more detail around some of the topics that Banesh touched on today. And our contact information is here up on the screen. Beth, I think we wanted to ask have a few questions that you wanted to ask if you want to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to just load up some 3 quick poll questions, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So I'm going to launch the poll questions now. Do you have a PLM in place? Yes or no? Okay, great. Next one, if yes, what type of PLM system do you use? All right, looks like majority Windchill users. And then the last one, was this presentation useful for you today? And hopefully you all say yes. Okay, and that's the last one. We're going to open up the floor to address some of your questions and have Anish address those. Let's see here. It looks like we don't have any questions at this time. What you can do is, as we mentioned, you can always reach out to Mike Mills or Banish Kumar at your own convenience if you have any technical inquiries come up, or if you just want more information around this webcast topic or our PLM packages that we're offering. I'll give the floor back to you, Mike, to close it out.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions, inquiries, please feel free to reach out. If you have something you want to talk about immediately, I'm available this afternoon. And we'd love to set up a one-on-one call with you to answer some of your more specific questions. Banesh and I are both will make ourselves available. So I appreciate everyone's attendance and time. I know everyone's really busy. We want to try to keep this on track, so I think we're right at an hour. That's all I had. Banesh, if you had anything else to add?
Oh, we do have a few questions. We do have a few questions.
Okay.
Let's quickly go through these. Do you recommend a separate server for PSM, Dinesh?
Yes, it's recommended to have a small dedicated server for PSM. As I mentioned, it should not be large. It can be like 2 core 8 gigs of RAM machine, a VMware.
Okay. Is there a dashboard that will show me WGM client disconnects?
There are no, there are few dashboards which you could use for monitoring the performance of your WGM, like whether the transaction got failed. Those are available in your out-of-the-box, dashboards. You can go to Cockpit and select your WGM transaction. But if the transaction is from a network level, we need to monitor the performance between or the interaction between your server and the client. But if there is something which happens, or if the connection is getting disconnected from server side, of course it will be logged in PSM PurePath. There are few browser hotspot, and PurePath which you can use. That will also help you in identifying your client WGM disconnects. For the answer of that question, yes, we do have quite a few out-of-the-box WGM related dashboards.
Okay, great. I think we're going a little over time here, but we will reach out to you offline and get these questions answered for everyone who submitted them. Mike, you can close it out now.
Okay, great. As I mentioned, thanks everyone for your time, and we look forward to seeing you attend our webcasts in the future. So again, check BWIR.com, the archive section, and you can also register for upcoming webcasts. Thank you all very much, and have a wonderful rest of the day.